Hello and welcome to Talk a Good Game. It's a preview of what was going to be the Gaffer karaoke. One in, one out, the other one in and other and out. Fan bases are split between both sides, but Gonzo, that's come to a conclusion today, at least for Arsenal. What's your thoughts on the managerial merry-go-round news?
I I was a bit surprised. I've sort of one of those things where you're waiting for them to go for years and years because their form's dipped. And when the news came, it sort of came out of the blue this morning, really. It's an interesting one because I might view Arsene Wenger slightly differently to other people because when they said he's been there 20 years, well, you think, well, actually, there's be people that are 20, 25 watching this who won't remember what it was like before. So just to put it into a bit of context, because I do think he's got a load of abuse. Sky are on at the moment saying there's been loads of praise. But there's also been a lot of abuse as well. Before Arsene Wenger, it was Bruce Rioch for a little while, and there was Stuart Houston, who was a caretaker manager. Before that was a guy called George Graham, which is where the chant where 1-0 to the Arsenal came from. The football was awful, was very, very, very defensive, probably sound familiar. And when he came in, Liverpool had pretty much gone. Liverpool were the dominant force in English football. Man U were just coming in. Like Man U would dominate for ages. And Wenger came in and he turned a team that played hoofball and went for 1-0 wins through hoofball into a passing team. All players like Vieira in and Bergkamp and Overmars and all these players. And he just changed the style of it. And he was a very, very good manager. And until the big money came in, they whatever they were, they went for a season undefeated. And until Abramovich came in with his money and started buying, it was then possible to buy the Premier League title with money. He was going strong. Unfortunately, then he just got outspent, and I think he probably stayed a little bit too long. But I certainly felt he'd deserve a little bit more respect, particularly from the Arsenal fans than he eventually got. But I'm also mindful, like when we had Allardyce and all the fans were telling us, "Oh, you should be happy with what you got." I'm also mindful about telling them. So I'm sure if they judged it was time for him to go, it possibly was time for him to go. But he was a very, very good manager.
Al, the professor, turned up and educated us on football, but what's your opinion on the news today?
Um, to be honest with you, I was shocked because he signed a new 2 year deal. He dragged it out a lot last season about whether he was staying or whether he was going. The same thing he's done every 2 years since he's had a 2 year deal. I am shocked that he's gone, but I think it's been a long time coming. To be honest, it could have happened a lot, a lot sooner than what it has done. To be fair, he's done really well. There's no taking it away from him. He's up there. You got Alex Ferguson, the best Premier League manager of all time. Arsene Wenger's second, in my opinion. But the problem is where he's been so stubborn and he's stayed on for too long. In a way, he has tarnished his legacy. And I think, unfortunately, now, not everyone is going to look at him the same way that they would have done if he'd have stepped away maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe even longer. Well, they went through a run of, what was it, nearly 10 years without winning a trophy. So maybe even a lot longer he should have gone.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think he outstayed his welcome. When I was growing up as a little boy, I admired Arsenal. I liked the way they play. I used to watch them a lot just because of the way they played football. And as a boy growing up, that's who you try to learn from, really. You try to sort of replicate what you see in Arsenal playing, like with Perez and Henry, etc. You try to replicate that on the football pitch as well. But he's far outstayed his welcome. Managers have a lifespan, I think, at the top of the game. Very, very rarely does a manager go decades at winning stuff, and it's just caught up with him. That's all. I think unlike Man United, where after Fergie left, the only way was down. I think now for Arsenal, I think the only way is up. I think there's a complete difference. One got out at the right time, and I think one's got out where his legacy's almost been tarnished a little bit, because of what's happened over the last few years, because they've been massively underachieving. But Al, what's your thoughts on Arsenal's season so far, ignoring the manager side of it? They're sixth in the league, but they're in the Europa League semi-finals.
I mean, in terms of the league, it's awful, to be honest. The amount of money they've spent, you think they've spent 100, is it over £100 million on a strike force in Aubameyang and Lacazette? And Lacazette's 11 goals he's got this season. I mean, they've gone out, they've spent ridiculous amounts of money on average players, and they haven't really progressed. And it could come a turn out that Burnley end up finishing above them, and Burnley have had next to nothing to spend. Now, obviously, they have got a hard draw in the Europa League, and they have progressed in that. But if you actually asked any Arsenal fans at the start of the season about, oh, would you be happy in the Europa League? Obviously, they'd turn around and say no, because a club that's achieved what Arsenal's achieved, they wouldn't be happy being sixth and being in the Europa League semi-finals. They want to be challenging for the top four, especially with the amount of money that they are now spending.
Gonzo, what about yourself? What's your thoughts on the Gunners season?
Well, it's been a poor season by their standards, and I just think they're weak in midfield. And I think that's contributed a lot to it. I mentioned before, I mentioned a few players, mentioned what Arsene Wenger likes to play. Um, I don't think that's been a hallmark of how he likes to play or has been representative of his teams in many respects. I know he played a Winker team, but I looked at one of their teams very, very recently. It may even have been the league game because I think they went strong in the Europa League and then played perhaps a weakened team in the league. Maybe it was against Southampton, not sure. But I looked at the team and I thought, well, that was awful. It was an awful looking team, you know. I think Aubameyang was in there, and then it was sort of Welbeck and Iwobi, and then El Nene and someone else, and someone else thought, oh, you know, they have fallen a fair distance, you know. For you look at the big time players that Man United got in central midfield or Man City or something like that, and actually I thought, oh, they do look incredibly weak. So I heard he said he's going to prioritise the game against Atletico Madrid as well. So we may well be facing that sort of weak team that I just mentioned. So has it come? It might even have come at a good time for us. We don't know.
I was about to say that, Gonzo. Do you think it is an advantage, though? Because one side of it, they are rotating it for the Europa League game on Thursday. But on the other side now, this news has come out. Is that going to give them a motivational boost between now and then the season? Is that why the timing is what it is? Try and galvanise the players that your manager's going to the end of the season. Let's put them out on a high.
Well, I said something about this about Wilkins, if you remember when Wilkins passed away, and obviously Wenger's not passed away, but there's something has happened at the club. There's one thing is the players. So is it going to galvanise the players? Who knows? Don't know. Depends. If it does, then clearly they haven't been pulling their weight anyway. But what's he going to do to the fans? We've got to bear in mind that these fans have been not going to games by and large. We are so focused on our own situation. Actually, they've got a situation over there whereby the fans have stopped going. It's incredibly quiet. I mean, it is a very, very quiet away game, as is Old Trafford. And so I would, under normal circumstances, you would think, well, this might galvanise the fans and make the stadium loud, which then encourages the team. But they're sort of weird fans, Arsenal fans. You look at the fan cams like West Ham Fan TV. You got normal working class fans on there. They're like normal people. But like when you look at Arsenal Fan TV, they're sort of like PlayStation sort of dickhead wannabe fans sort of thing. They're a funny old breed. They're not like normal fans. So are they going to respond in that same way? And I just think they're a quiet. I just think they're a quiet bunch. I still think it's advantage us basically.
Yeah, I think this has been a poor season. I think Arsenal have lost the fear factor a little bit, despite their home record, which I'll tell you about in a second. They've just lost that fear factor. They've got no points away from home in 2018 in the league. They're the only team in England that hasn't got a point away from home, and that's just because teams don't fear them anymore. Yes, they are rotating the squad as well because of the European competition, but so there's other clubs. There's other clubs rotating squads as well, but people just don't fear them. When Arsenal rock up, people are. Managers as well as fans are fancying their chances. They're thinking we can get 3 points against the slot here. When Alexa Pep Guardiola rocks up with City or Pochettino with Spurs, the same clubs probably don't look at them the same way. They think, well, hang on, we need to set up here a little bit more defensively and try and be good to get a point here. I think Arsenal seen as a different light to them, and I think they need this change to get them back up into that upper echelon of the Premier League because they're in danger of sort of fading away a bit. I thought they'd solved it last summer, actually, getting Lacazette. I thought that's the guy they've all been waiting for. But then in January, they lost Alexis Sanchez. And granted, they replaced him well, but it's just not worked. Last question on the Arsenal. It's probably an obvious answer, but who are you fearing the most? Who do you consider to be the danger man for Arsenal on Sunday?
Well, obviously, Aubameyang's going to be playing because he's not eligible to play in the Europa League game. But there's not really many that, as you said, the fear factor has gone from them. But Aubameyang really is the main one. I mean, you've got maybe Mkhitaryan if he plays. That's the thing. We don't really know what team he's going to put out. And until we know the team sheet, really, it's a bit difficult to say. But I think I can't see Wilshere playing because if he's going to prioritise the Europa League game, I can't see Wilshere playing Sunday and then obviously playing Thursday. It's a difficult one, but I think obviously Aubameyang, Welbeck, I think might start against us, but I think, to be honest with you, we need to, especially on Arnautovic, we need to exploit their defence because their defence is very shaky at the moment. So, and that's what we need to be looking to hit them on the break with.
Aubameyang will be starting up front for Arsenal because he's cup tied in the Europa League, so he doesn't need to be rested. Arsenal have won all 12 home games against sides outside the top 6 at the Emirates this season. They've also won 22 of their last 24 Premier League games at home. So while their away form shocking, their home form is not. And if his home form was the only point sheet included, they'd be sitting third in the Premier League just now. Their away side, however, their away form, they're sitting 15 in the Premier League. Gonzo, Arsenal aren't number one in the Premier League like they like to be. Let's talk about our number one. Are we changing again? We've been chopping and changing our keeper all season, and Hearts made another howler.
Yeah, it has been chopping and changing, and I think it's been hard for the manager to decide who's number one. But if the reports are to be believed that Moyes is staying, then I think that's it with Joe Hart, really. Clearly, Joe Hart isn't going to stay. Joe Hart needs to go and resurrect his career elsewhere, wherever that may be. With that in mind, I think anybody, it would be tough to recover very quickly from a ricket like that. And also just think, if you are playing Arsenal, whilst they might not have their best team, they're going to have a lot of shots. And the last thing you need is everybody being nervous because the goalkeeper's in there, be it the crowd or the defenders in front of him, of course. So I'd take him out of there and put Adrian in. And I think Moyes, that's exactly what Moyes is going to do.
Al, do you agree with that, or would you be keeping Joe Hart in there, England's number 4?
I think after the other night, don't get me wrong, he had a good game against Chelsea. He did have a good game against Chelsea, but now the stat the other day that he's made as many mistakes as he's kept clean sheets for us, it says something. Now, everyone said, oh, Joe Hart, great goalkeeper, he's done well in the part. That was at Man City. That was when you've got a world-class defence in front of you. Torino, he struggled. He made mistakes upon mistakes at Torino. He's done exactly the same thing with us. And he doesn't look confident. And as a centre-half, if your goalkeeper's not confident, then that reflects through to your centre-half and even further down the pitch, because then everyone's going to be, well, hold on a minute, we've got to be on red alert just in case he spills anything out. And that shouldn't be the case, because this guy was England's number 1. He was rated as the best goalkeeper in England a few years ago when he was at Man City, but he's fallen away so much that I think, to be honest with you, I think he's finished. I really do. And I would put Adrian back in goal for the rest of the season.
As would I. I would be changing up and agreeing with you two. Al, the back five has been pretty steady. Team news, James Collins is not back for this one. He's not going to make it. David Moyes has basically said he's got Lanzini back, although he played against Stoke. We already knew that. And he said that Andy Carroll is not fit enough to play 90 minutes. That might be good news or bad news, depends how you look at it. But as for the back five, Al, it's been pretty settled in the last few weeks. Would you make any changes there? You don't really have much choice unless we're going to bring in Patrice Evra.
No, I don't think he'll make it. To be honest with you, I think he'll start the same team that he started the last 2 games, to be honest. I don't think that it will change. I mean, Cresswell had a decent game the other night, as did Ogbonna, and I thought Rice, to be honest, was man of the match. But Masuaku, obviously, cemented his place in the team. I don't think... Well, we haven't lost since he's come back, unless I'm wrong. I don't think we've lost since he's come back from his ban. But also Zabaleta, we've got no other option to play a right wing back, so I think the back five stays as it is, I think.
Gonzo, does your fabulous 5 pick themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Keep it as it is.
And what about your middle 2 Gonzos? Right in the middle of the midfield, Mark Noble's 1, I assume. Who's your other one?
I will still play Chiatti in there just for the lack of any other choice. I don't think Mario is not really physical enough to put back there. Maybe you could put Fernandez in there to play that position. I think he's leggy enough and he could do it, but he doesn't look confident or good to me at the moment. And whilst he doesn't instill loads of confidence in the team, at least Chiatti is going to get around. He's going to make some tackles. He's going to make some blocks, and maybe that's what he's going to do. So I'll probably leave those 2 the same.
What about yourself, Al? What midfield pairing would you be going for? I mean, or do you, again, a bit like the back 5, just go by default?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to. We haven't got any options. I'm not sure how far Obiang's away from coming back now. I know Moyes said that he should be back at some point before the end of the season, but I'm not sure when. Also, I mean, you have, as Gonzo said, you got Fernandez who you can put back there, but I can't. He does like Czech, so I can't see him dropping Czech at all. And I mean, obviously, Noble's playing really well at the moment, so them 2 for me, they'll probably be centre midfielders, Czech and Noble.
I would be putting Fernandez back in there with Mark Noble. I think, like we've done the reviews with Gonzo the last couple of times, I've said I don't think he has had a role. I think he's had too many roles. I would like to see him given a simple one. Just sit in the midfield with Mark Noble. You don't necessarily have to venture into final third. Leave that for the front three, and you focus on, with Mark, blocking up that area in front of your back three where Arsenal like to get it in. That's where Arsenal like to play, in between your midfield and defence, so don't let them in there. He's got a bit of pace about him. He's quite eager in the tackle, which might be a bad thing, but I'd be putting Fernandez in there. But Gonzo, that leaves three spaces, and Arnautovic is one of them. Who's your other two players?
Hernandez and Lanzini. I do think there's an argument for Mario might enjoy a little bit more space, if you like, against Arsenal, because I think Granit Xhaka likes to put it about a bit sometimes, but then you wouldn't call them an overly physical team, maybe. So I think he might enjoy a bit more space. But again, it's sort of like Joe Hart. I don't think we're keeping Mario, so I think it's a bit pointless in playing. I said a few weeks ago I thought 35 points would be safe, and I still do. I think we'll get more than 35, but Lanzini's he's faster, bit more in product. And yeah, so I'll be playing Lanzini. And you spoke about Andy Carroll not being 90 minutes fit. Well, I'm pretty sure Javier Hernandez will be, and chomping at the bit as well. So those are my two guys to go in.
Is it a no-brainer to start Hernandez, Gonzo, or because you spoke about the type of game that might suit other players? Could it be argued that this type of game possibly won't suit Hernandez?
I just think he scores. The old song, he scores when he wants. Well, you know what? Perhaps he don't score when he wants, but he scores when he gets the chance. And I think it's up to Moyes to devise something, because anybody else that you put ahead of Hernandez is not as good a player as Hernandez. It doesn't matter. Fernandez is not as good as Hernandez. Obviously, at different positions, but as a striker, he's much better. And in the same way, Hernandez is a better striker than Mario is a midfielder. So you make a formation, you make a team. And Arnautovic is certainly good enough to drop one position deeper. He's a very, very good player, and I think he's one of our top 3 or 4 players, Hernandez. So he should start.
What about yourself, Al? I think the majority of West Ham fans would like to see Lanzini and Hernandez brought in. Are you one of those, or would you be keeping Mario in there?
No, for me, it's got to be Lanzini and Hernandez in there. I think, as Gonzo said, Arnautovic can drop back. He can play a little bit deeper as well. But I think you need to, especially with how shaky Arsenal's defence are now, with the runs that Hernandez makes off the shoulder of the last defender, you need to have someone like that in, because then he will obviously open up space for Lanzini, and he will open up space for Arnautovic. So for me, them two definitely have to start.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I'd have Lanzini and Hernandez as well, hence why I've got Fernandez dropping back a little bit. But I'll make a prediction. I think Moyes is going to start Mario and Lanzini in behind Arnautovic with Chiati and Noble in the midfield. I bet that's what he does. I can predict it from now. I can see it coming a mile away. I've already got it set in my head that that's what I'm going to see on Sunday when the teams come out. West Ham have lost 7 of 11 away games to sides outside the bottom 6 this season so far. So we're not great on the road against teams that are not in the bottom of the table, basically. Gonzo, you're making a strange old face there, rolling eyes, perhaps. Are you confident for this one?
Yeah, I'm not rolling eyes at you. I'm rolling eyes at, you know, how these things seem to happen when we play teams, don't they? So I was just thinking, obviously we know in the build up to the week we're going to do a preview. And I was thinking the other day, actually, I'm quite confident for this one. And then that happens today. And it just throws an unknown into the situation. You know, they all seem to be announcing, all the Arsenal players seem to be announcing their undying love for Wenger. If you loved him that much, why haven't you been playing for him recently? You know, so you don't know if that's going to make a difference. I don't know what happened with Ozil and Al mentioned Mkhitaryan. I mean, obviously, they're both players that can unlock the door. If all we get is Aubameyang up front, and then the rest is El Nene and Granit Xhaka and all the rest of it, of Monreal trying to give him a bit of whip, this, that, and the other, I am quite confident we'll get something out of the game, actually. If they start to introduce a few more of their big guns and the team are up for it, then it's just throwing a spanner in the works, really.
What about yourself? They've got a fantastic home record. We've got a poor one, but does all that go to pot when you consider all the circumstances? Are you confident?
I'd take a point. I would definitely take a point. I think we do seem to struggle away to them quite a bit. I know, obviously, first team at the Emirates, last team at Highbury and stuff like that, but we do struggle away from home against Arsenal. and it is for us a hard place to go. So if it was offered to me now, I'd take a point. But I do think we need to go for it as well. We can't just sit back and just let them come at us, because the problem is you've still got Aubameyang playing, and Aubameyang is a top striker, and these top strikers, they need one chance. That's the thing. And if you keep giving them opportunities, with how shaky our goalkeepers are, they're going to put it away, and then we could end up just capitulating.
I'm confident. It's a bit like when we went to Stamford Bridge. I'm confident we won't get smashed, basically. I'm a bit like Alto. I'll take a point right now. You offer me a point and we don't have to play the game, I'm taking it. I think that would near enough guarantee Premier League safety. As much as I think we're virtually safe anyway, I think a point would just really see us good for another year. I don't fear Arsenal that much, but their home record speaks for themselves. It's a fantastic home record. It can't be overlooked. And they've got the Europa League. So if they rotate the team, surely there's 2 or 3 players in that starting 11 that are in contention for starting on Thursday, but they haven't quite cemented their place in the team. They must be up for it. They have to be. They've got Burnley breathing down their necks. And if things happen the way it can do, I can't remember the scenario. It's got to do with Arsenal getting overtaken by Burnley. They don't win the Europa League, and it's got to do with the FA Cup. I think Man United might have to win it, or the other way around. Arsenal's pre-season starts like a week after the World Cup finishes. No football player wants that. Right? Let's be honest, especially players at the World Cup. Of course, they have an extended leave, etc. But because of the Europa League qualifiers, their start date just comes so far forward and just throws everything into chaos. So I'm not as confident as Gonzo. Put it like that. Well, let's do score predictions. That'll tell the story. Al, you're the guest. Thank you for joining us tonight. But what's your score prediction for the Emirates on Sunday?
I'll go for 1-1. I'll go for.
Interesting. Gonzo, what about yourself?
It's going to be a conundrum. We're going to be scratching our heads thinking, actually, is David Moyes all that bad at all? Arsenal Fan TV, we don't know what to do because Arsenal would have lost, but they won't be able to whinge about Wenger because we're going to win 2-0.
Well, I hope you're right. Anyway,
if you believe that, you believe anything. I've just made it up.
I'm gonna go for 2-1 Arsenal. Unfortunately, I like my stats. The stats speak for themselves, and I've just not been very impressed by Arsene Moyes recently. So to say all that, be unimpressed by us, etc., then all of a sudden think we're going to turn up at the Emirates and turn it on. I don't know. It wouldn't be honest anyway. But anyway, that's been Gonzo, that's been Al, I've been Jill, we've been Hamish Chat. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Comment in the comments below what your thoughts on the game are, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Me and Gonzo will be back on Sunday with another guest talking about the game and hopefully celebrating something for West Ham.